everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 49 of Monster. And yeah, the last two episodes have been pretty crazy. Setting up this man in the Rose mansion, setting up the idea of Nina and Johan's past, possibly, setting up Grimmer and his agenda, Tenma's with Grimmer now, finding some resolution with Sook. He's okay. He's gonna seemingly be okay because Grimmer's been MVP and gotten him good with the Czech police or the Secret Service, even though the actual Czech police are still looking for him. I'm like, can't you help a guy out? And things are just getting crazier because now Lunge is in Prague, as well as Nina and Dieter. So it's like everybody's just gathered to Prague. Just gangs all here. What could happen? Who knows? We're nearing towards the latter third of the series. So the thing about this series too is I have no clue where it goes because we add lots of little pieces here and there as we go further. So who knows? But yeah, I do have a few quick comments before we start this episode. I swallow apple seeds. This comment made me laugh really hard, but they're not wrong. They're like, Grimmer is basically what would happen if Johan had sex appeal. I laughed really hard about that because Johan has a lot of simps, a lot of stans, but Johan doesn't exactly exude, I guess he does, it's very subjective. I guess you could say he does exude sex appeal, but it's all very cold and distant and soft. Grimmer is like so warm and cozy and you want to wrap a sweater or cardigan around him and like cuddle up next to him. It's a totally different vibe. But Grimmer and Johan are actually quite similar, as we've talked about in previous discussions. So I thought that was really funny. I was like, I'm definitely on Team Grimmer, but I know a lot of people are on Team Johan. So y'all can have him. I'll take Grimmer to myself, right? And then H-Banana7, speaking of Grimmer, H-Banana7 pointed out in episode 47 that Grimmer, that entire episode, did not fake smile. They didn't fake smile because they didn't have to. They could be themselves in that episode. And it was so heart-wrenching to see him try to inform the Czech secret police man about what his nephew had gone through. And then beyond that, I really like H-Banana7 kind of pointing out what I've talked about in the discussions, in that Grimmer is trying to change the system that created Johan. Essentially, he's trying to change that system and dismantle it. And I think that honestly is a much more worthwhile goal than what Tenma is trying to do in just killing Johan. We've talked about this for I don't know how many episodes in the discussions, but yeah, Tenma killing Johan doesn't solve the problem. It just kills one product of Kinderheim, but it doesn't stop the system from repeating or happening again. Whereas Grimmer is trying to essentially dismantle the system and break the wheel. And I'm like, good. So my only hope is that maybe as time goes on and Tenma continues down this path of learning things about Johan with Grimmer, maybe Tenma's goals will change, but maybe not. Probably not. Tenma is kind of a colossal protagonist where he's just larger than life. And he's one of those protagonists that I don't know if he's going to change or not. But I am really on board with Grimmer's message and all this, that he just wants to make the system that created Johan non-existent. So good for him. In the words of Lucille Bluth, good for her. So yeah, I honestly have no clue what we're going to get this episode. I would like to learn more about the Rose Mansion, but who knows at this point. With Lunge there and Nina there and Dieter there, there's lots of pieces on the chessboard, and I don't know where it's all going to go, so we'll just have to find out. Real quick, I want to give a special shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon. You guys are awesome and you help me buy the manga for this series that I kind of preview when I get to. And you guys help me just to be on top of things with reactions and being able to support the official release of manga and anime as they come. So I really appreciate it, but I want to give a special shout out to our philanthropy tier who go above and beyond each month to donate a little bit extra to help me. And that includes Edgar, Dana, Alex Cornejo, Be Happy, Kiri, Shimoyama, Nameless Monster, Ashigots No Bitches, Trails, Matthew Palfinier, Goob, Anna, Translucent Men, Sunspots, Eric, Anime Annie, and Tyrone. Thank you all so much. You all are wonderful people, completely amazing. All of my love. Thank you. So yeah, I don't know what to expect out of this episode. Again, it's one of those things where it's been very episodic and trying to predict what's going to happen each episode. There is a through thread, but it's not something like with the library, the library in the end of Berlin, it was kind of like an impending, we're building to this moment. I don't know what we're building to anymore. We're not really building to anything. We're just putting puzzle pieces together. So as soon as we find out what we're building towards, that might be a different story. But we're going to dive into episode 49 and see what we get. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Well, this episode was heartbreaking. I swear, this entire week on this channel, like every show this week with the exception of 2, has been incredibly heartbreaking. And I'm like, why not? It's just Heartbreak City this week, and this episode's no exception, so why not? Why not? Why not? So yeah, oh my god, I feel so empathetic towards Grimmer, right? Because I feel so empathetic towards Grimmer, and Grimmer and Johan are, interestingly, 2 sides of a very similar coin. I thought it was going to be Tenma and Johan, and it is in a way, it is in a lot of ways, but honestly, Grimmer and Johan are like the 2 sides of the coin, because both of them are products of Kinderheim. They both have lost people in their lives, but the way that they go about, the way that they encounter emotions and the way that they feel things, I probably should have got Whiteboard Kun out at this point, but you have on the one hand, you have Grimmer, who has had his emotions erased from him. He doesn't understand emotions. He had to go to a school to learn what emotions were again, to like learn how to socialize and understand emotions. And he's aware that he doesn't understand emotions, but he doesn't know what to do about it, and he doesn't know how to determine situations. And I feel for the level of trust that he places in Tenma to talk to Tenma about this, because I think that says a lot, because it's not something you would just talk to a random person you barely knew. Like, that trust is already developed between Tenma and Grimmer. But he just doesn't know how to process, but he's trying to. He wants to understand emotions. He wants to connect with people. He wants to love and be loved. And that's one side of the coin, is with Grimmer. Then you have Johan, who is frustrated and angry that he's lost his emotions, angry that he's lost his memories, and hates the system that created him. But it's not just the system that he hates. Like, Grimmer's trying to dismantle the system because he's like, I don't think we should create people like Johan. That's a bad idea. Johan's just like, he's so apathetic and nihilistic that he's just like, the system, this is just one system of many. The whole world's shit, and we shouldn't believe in any of it because it's just bad. And I'm like, what's so frustrating is the hypocrisy of Johan at this point, because you have Johan, sweet Johan, who 10 episodes ago was like, yes, I'm making a children's bill that's going to save the kiddos. And in this one, he takes a kid to a red light district and drops him off where he clearly knows the kid's going to see the worst scum of the world. And it's like, oh yeah, this is how the whole world is like. But it's not. That's the problem. It's like, you want to save all the children, but you're going to subject them to this? What? Why are you like this? And it's just, it's so frustrating, right? And it's so frustrating. And just what he does to Milos to try to like corrupt him and make him like turn against the world is so cruel. And it's like a little mini version of Kinderheim itself. And then luckily it takes Grimmer gets there in time to save him and be like, no, you do have purpose. Someone does care for you. You're not alone. And for that, it's like Grimmer is a catalyst to reenact what Petrov was trying to teach them. And thank God it saves him in that moment. Now, I'm not going to lie. There was a part of me when Milos lost it and thought he saw how the world was, there was a part of me that was like, maybe it's better if he dies before he infects the other kids at the orphanage with that ideology. And then when Grimmer saves him, I was like, okay, he saved him. And then when he steps on the moth, I'm like, oh no, Johan's created another version of him. He's going to infect the orphanages. And luckily Grimmer's like, no, don't be like that. Like, someone loves you. It's okay. And he starts to have this emotional reaction. I'm hoping that Milos is saved. I'm hoping Grimmer's love has saved him and he's not going to infect the orphanage with his ideologies he's learned from Johan. I'm hoping that's the case. But how do you undo what's been seen? You know? He can't unsee that. No way. So then it becomes a matter of, well, he's going to have to go to therapy. He's going to have to see some people to get that to help deal with that. But I'm like, Johan, how dare you? Like, how dare you intentionally shove a kid into an environment that a kid shouldn't be in? I'm like, my whole thing is, I'm like, just because your childhood sucked, Johan, and yeah, it sounds like it sucked really bad, but just because your childhood sucked does not mean you have to make every other kid's childhood suck. That's not you. That's not on you. And I'm like, I have a lot of problems with Johan in this episode. I'm like, I don't see anything beneficial with what he did with Milos. If somebody argues he was showing him the realistic part of the world, I'm like, he's a freaking child. He will grow up and figure that out for himself, but you don't show innocent children that shit. No, you don't. Like, he was just kicking around soccer ball, having a good old time. No. Time and place. Time and place. But it's not the orphanage that Antonin is in. It's a different one, right? And so at this orphanage, Milos gets in trouble because he keeps wandering around. He keeps like leaving. And they're like, you keep following. Why didn't you keep following her? And so we established that Milos is keep looking for his mom, who doesn't exist. And Grimmer tells him the truth at the end. He's like, your mom isn't around. She wasn't there. And so he's like, but you are still wanted. People do still want you there. And Milos is a very impressionable kid. I don't think the other kids would have fell quite as hard or as easily as Milos. But Milos was clearly like, there was just something about him from the episode that he seemed easy to manipulate. And Johan preys on people like that. He preys on people that are easy to manipulate. So it's just so cruel. I'm like Johan was clearly going to be fine with this kid killing himself. And no skin off his back. He's just enlightened a kid to the rest of the world. I do love the only bit of humor in this entire episode is when the guy turns around and they're like, oh, you're not the blonde girl we're looking for. But then there's that creepy ass shot of Johan just finding Milos and taking him away. And again, it's almost like the people who are easy to hypnotize are the ones that get targeted for things like this. Like Milos, I'm sure would be easy to hypnotize. He was easy to corrupt. Right? Oh man, it's just like, what the fudge? What are we even doing, show? This episode was hard. This episode, the cruelest thing was, it was very much like a little self-contained episodic episode, but it did a lot of things. We learned a lot about Grimmer this episode. We finally got some questions answered about Grimmer's past. We got some more interactions of boyfriend Grimmer and boyfriend Tenma. I'm sorry, but if Tenma can teach Grimmer to feel and have compassion and love in his heart, if I'm like, I've never shipped like I've shipped for Tenma and Grimmer in this series. I'm like, let Grimmer be a light for Tenma. I don't want Grimmer to die. I want him to be with Tenma forever and ever. Let them grow old together. I'm like, oh God. I don't think that's gonna happen, but I'm gonna live in my delusion. For the time being, I'm gonna live in my delusion. The thing that scares me about this entire situation, the thing that scares me is we get them to go up into the room, right? And so he's like, it's those kids from the orphanage that came back there. And he gets the card with the famous soccer player. And he's like, this is something precious. He's like, I don't know how to react. My emotions were stolen. He's like, everything I've done up until now is things I've learned in a school. But I don't really know how to react personally to this interpersonal communication situation, right? And he's like, what kind of expression is appropriate here? And Tim was like, well, it kind of depends on, you know, they like you, so what does that mean? The thing that I'm scared about is Tenma was very quick to draw his gun on knowing that Johan is dressing up as Anna. My fear is that at some point we're going to get to like a climax of this arc and Nina is going to be confused for Anna and Tenma's going to pull his gun out and fire and kill Nina. That's my fear. If I'm being perfectly honest, I think he's going to accidentally kill Nina. And the worst case scenario would be if he did it in front of Dieter. And then he'd lose Nina and he'd lose Dieter. That's what I'm afraid of. That's what I'm afraid of, is that's going to happen. And I'm hoping it doesn't, but that's my fear. Is that Tenma's going to get so desperate he's going to confuse Anna and Nina and shoot the wrong person. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but this episode put that on my radar of like, ooh, I'm like, Tenma, maybe we should check and make sure it's actually, because the thing was they had them cornered in a room. They weren't going anywhere. So if it was Johan in there, they would have had them cornered, but So first they go to the Saint Bardajov orphanage, and they run into the kids, Antonin and them, and the children's diary, like Grimmer's smiling because she basically talks about how they all write about him, and Grimmer smiles because he doesn't know what else to do. He's like, okay, what else should I do in this situation? And Tim is like, well, they all like you, and he's like, I don't know what that means. And it's like, oh my gosh, Grimmer. And I like that we're getting more with Grimmer, that we're getting more about him, and he's kind of opening up to Tenma, and he's like, I don't know exactly what to do. I'm good at my job. And then he talks about his son dying, and he's like, should I scream? Should I cry? He's like, how should I react? I still don't know. And then Antonin, so all the kids kind of about Milos and different orphanages, they all have heard from the communication between the orphanages about kids going missing, which I'm glad the orphanage owners and the orphanage people that run it like communicate with one another, but it's just, it's really sad. And I was like, oh no. I honestly kept thinking that we were going to get to a scenario where we'd be on a rooftop and Johan was going to make Milo jump off of it, which makes him almost jump off of a bridge to his death. So I guess we're about like that, but Now, the interesting thing with Lunge, we get like one little offshoot, and that's Lunge in this episode, is that he goes and visits Sook's mom. So Lunge's on the case. He's catching up to them, right? And he says, there are people who came to visit you. There were 4. There was a middle-aged gentleman, right, which is the guy with the police, the Czech police secret force. There was a tall German, which is Grimmer. There was a Japanese man with long hair, which is Tenma. And then she's like, yes. And the 4th person was the blonde woman. Now, Sook's mom says, oh no, there was no woman here. That woman was actually a man. Da-da, da-da, dude looks like a lady. It's like, yes, a very beautiful woman. And she's like, oh yes, but she was actually a man. Now, Lunge hears that and goes, I see. The question is, what is Lunge going to do with that information? Because Lunge could do one of 3 things. He could either write her off as crazy and not a reliable source. He's not doing the tappity taps with his hands, so he's not processing this information. Or he could think, okay, well, she's telling the truth. It was a woman dressed as a man, but what does that mean? Or 3, is he going to think and connect it in any way, shape, or form to Nina and Anna? Is he going to believe Nina and Johan are the same person? Is he going to do that? Or is he going to tie it to twins? Because he has the sketches of the twins that he knows about, so he knows he can connect Anna and Johan together. But is he going to connect and think that maybe the twins are just one person? I don't know. But I'm really curious to know what Lunge is going to do with that information, because Lunge has been told this now. So is he going to process that, put 2 and 2 together, or is he going to ignore it? We don't know. And it is very frustrating. So I don't know what to make of this. And they're like, Milos, have we met somewhere before? And then it's so creepy. I feel like Johan gave off the vibes of, have you guys ever watched Parent Trap, like the Lindsay Lohan version? It's from the 90s, but in the Parent Trap, the husband's like new girlfriend is like the blonde and has like she has like the silk scarf and everything. She's very posh. Johan looked like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, all I could think about at the beginning was Johan just looking like the Parent Trap girlfriend that gets kicked out, right? And she just lures him in, like brings him with the orange juice. And Milos doesn't want to be there. Milos does not want to be there. And Milos is very observant. Again, this series does a really good job of showing you that kids are observant. They pay attention, they notice things, and they're smarter than you think. And Milos notices that this apartment, there's nothing in it. He's like, are you moving? Because it doesn't look like you even live here. And it's like, oof. I'm like, and we see the duffel bag. So Johan is traveling from place to place and just keeping their makeup and their clothes in the duffel bag as they travel. We've got 3. We got Grimmer, we got Tenma, we got Johan, the duffel trio, just carrying their luggage with them. They're like moving things, moving bags. It's like, oh my God. In another world, they could all be bros and go like hiking together. But Johan doesn't answer the kids' questions. Instead, Johan becomes the questioner, the interviewer. And again, the shadows from the table, everything. It's so creepy. But like, again, like you could have, but Johan, here's the thing. Johan doesn't believe that anybody loves them. Doesn't believe that anybody loves them and doesn't believe they have a purpose in life. And their whole soul existence seems to just be proving that to the world that there's no point in existing. Which is really sad. Very sad. But I'm like, you don't have to influence kids like this. You should be talking to adults, not children. It's like, and Milos makes the comment, I'll recognize my mom when I see her, and my mom will recognize me. And that's when Johan says, what if she pretends she doesn't recognize you? So I'm wondering what exactly, we get a little bit of fragment of Johan and Nina's memory through Nina, where we see the Rose Mansion, we see the mom there, whatever. Is it possible that Johan is drawing from his own experience and is trying to like put this kid through what he went through? Oh, very possible. Very possible. But I'm like, one, don't do that. And two, I want to know more about like what has Johan gone through before he got to Kinderheim, right? Because I think there's some stuff there. Why were you abandoned? Didn't your mother abandon you because she didn't like you? And honestly, Johan doesn't know that. There's a lot of complicated circumstances with the red light district. There's a lot going on. Like, she could have not had money to take care of him. She could have been forced by a pimp to get rid of him. She could have, like, died giving birth to him. She could have, like, had complications after she gave birth to him and needed him to go. Like Johan has no clue what this kid's mom's deal is, but he's just making these assumptions. And this is like a 10-year-old kid that wouldn't know how to differentiate all of that. So I'm like, how dare you, sir? No. Everything in this world is meant to die. Being born is nothing more than an insignificant speck and shouldn't be even counted as an existence. That's just like the nihilism there. And you could tell it started to affect Milos because when he killed the moth, it was like the moth didn't even deserve to live, right? It was just sitting there struggling in the water. So it's almost like Milos killed it out of mercy, being like, oh, you're struggling in this water. Well, now you're not struggling at all because you don't exist. I am still worried about Milos. The boy needs some therapy stat. I hope he tells Grimmer and Tenma what happened. He needs some therapy. He needs some psychological evaluation. And he needs some love. And I'm worried that he's going to badly influence the boys at that orphanage, but I don't know. I mean, the damage has been done. Regardless of if Milos gets better, he's never going to be what he once was. Right? And that's the cruelest thing. Again, the cruelest thing is that once you experience that horror, you will never be the same again. But he didn't have to experience that. That's the problem. That's the problem. And so what is your reason for living? And they're like, Anna. And I like that Grimmer's like, believe it or not, I think Grimmer, despite Grimmer believing that he doesn't have any reactions or any emotions, he does express some emotions. But I think that for Grimmer, he expresses these emotions, but he doesn't know how to translate it, and he doesn't know what it means. So he's just like, he's kind of like, I don't know what expression I'm giving, what that gives off. But he is expressing something, right? So, it's just freaking heartbreaking, right? Freaking heartbreaking. And if Milos was kidnapped, that's why she's here. And of course, I like that Grimmer looks down and Tenma's got the gun, like, clocking it ready to go. And Grimmer's like, whoa, son. Whoa, Tenma, we don't have to go in guns a-blazing yet. Right? But that does worry me. It worries me that Tenma is so paranoid about Johan and the danger that he poses that he's gotten this violent reaction. And Grimmer's like, oh, I don't know if we should, do that, right? It's problematic. It is problematic. And then they go in and there's nobody there. They've already abandoned. And Grimmer's like, well, Milos is gone. He could possibly be kidnapped. How should I react to this situation? And that's when he tells us about his son and his son dying. He's like, I felt nothing when my own child died. He's like, I worked for the newspapers and a female colleague told me that she liked me, so I married her. And because they told me as a spy, it's better to have a family. So, obviously, the takeaway from this is that Grimmer's had sex. And if he has no clue how to feel emotions, I'm very curious how that went down. This whole time in the apartment where Grimmer's having the tragic story about his son's death and his wife leaving him and him not knowing how to display emotions, I'm sorry, but my mind was kind of in the gutter throughout all of it. And I was like, okay, Grimmer's had sex, but he didn't know how to react to it. I mean, I hope that there are some fan fictions of Tenma showing Grimmer how to feel. Let me have this! In the midst of all this sadness, let me have this, please. Let me have a Tenma and Grimmer fan fiction where Tenma teaches Grimmer how to feel emotions. Can I, the setup is there. It's there. The writing is on the wall. Can I please have this? Show, can you give this to me? Fandom, can you give this to me? I know the show's not going to give it to me, obviously, but if you all find any fanfics out there based on this scene where Tenma teaches Grimmer how to feel emotions and it doesn't have spoilers in it, send that to me in the Discord. I need this in my life, please. Especially after this week. This week's been rough with shows. It's just been sad city. But we find out his kid was fairly young when he died. He was face down and stopped breathing. So it sounds like he had like infant, I don't know if it's infant death syndrome, but it's like when they're an infant and they roll over and they can't breathe. It happens a lot, unfortunately. But it seems like it was that. And he did everything he could, but his son died. And then his wife at the funeral broke down and was like, why are you so calm? You're unable to love another person. There's nothing in your heart. And that's the sad thing. Like, it goes back to Petrov and how he understood about Petrov and them not being able to love. And I'm like, I think there is love in Grimmer's heart. He's just been forced to forget how to express it. And he finally expresses it at the end with Milos, but it's so damn heartbreaking. Again, this room is weird. There's no bed, nothing. I'm like, did Johan just sleep on the floor? What is up with that? And so then they're like, we have to find Milos. And I like that Tenma's like, yeah, if Johan's the person that I think he is, he's not just going to kill Milos, he's going to torture him before he kills him. Which, unfortunately, he does. And I like that Grimmer does have an expression where he's like, I don't like this. And he's like, there's a lively place up ahead. I'll wait for you here. Now, again, do you think Johan's waiting there for him? No. I think Johan sent this kid to the red light district knowing he was going to kill himself before he came back. Heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. And so he goes to the red light district. And they're like going that way too. And it's just like, it's all these things that like a little kid should not see. They shouldn't see imagery of adults in these situations. The people on the streets are just prostitutes and people after them. It's not good. It's no place for a child to be. And it's just like this den of the worst people imaginable, the most desperate people, and the people who are just in the worst spiritual state, right? And it goes from bad to worse. It goes from a man outright rejecting him and making fun of him thinking his mom's there, to a woman that's pretending to be his mom but ends up not being, to the most fucked up scene I've watched in a long time, where he makes a kid stay and watch him like have sex with this woman against a trash can. And the worst part is, he talks about being a teacher in Germany. And he talks about having a good reputation with the parents, being an honorable man and a wonderful teacher. And then he gives the kid money and leaves. And that's like just showing that even people who seem on the outside like they're so good can have horrible insides, which is like Johan. And then the woman takes his money, and it just, the trash can scene alone would be enough to mess up a kid. But the culmination of all of this that he sees, the worst of humanity. He just experiences the worst of it and is reminded of Johan's words of no one wanting him. And just this tiny little kid, this little bitty child, like standing out in the rain, saying that's how it is. And it's not how it is. That's just how that one place, that one tiny speck of existence is. But that's not how the entirety of it is. There are people that are kind and considerate. It's Milos just saw the worst of humanity. And I like that Tim was like, well, should we leave? And then that's when Grimmer sees him and they run over there. And the thing about it is, Grimmer who believes that he doesn't have any emotion and it doesn't know how to connect with people, he connects with Milo in that moment. He talks him down. He's like, Milos. And he's so calm. He's like, hey. He's like, it's all right. Like, he acts so calm and perfect, like negotiation, and lifts him up off the railing and hugs him. He's like, how am I supposed to feel, Tenma? I don't know how to handle these complicated feelings. And that's when he squishes the moth. And that's when Grimmer realizes that, oh my God, this kid's been corrupted. He's acting like how a kid at Kinderheim would act. And he flips him around. He says, what's wrong, Milos? And I mean, the kid looks like he's petrified. Like he's just been dazed. And that's when Grimmer gets upset because the look on Milos's face is how Grimmer has probably seen himself and how he's seen his friends, where they're just completely checked out of the rest of the world. Oh, it's awful. What did you see? What did you see back there? What have you experienced? And when he's like, Milos, listen to me. You don't have a mother. I know, and it's like Grimmer's trying to tell him, like, what's happened to you? You need to tell somebody about this. He's like, but. And he says, there is a reason why you were born. He's like, you were born because someone wanted you. Oh my God. And the emotion on Grimmer's face. Oh my God. It's just, my heart could not be bigger for Grimmer. I'm like, take me now. It's over. Someone wanted you. You were definitely wanted by someone. And Grimmer crying over him, like, brings the light back in his eyes. And that gets Milos to give him a hug. Like, to bring back that love when he grabs him. Like that animation of him just grabbing the sweater. He says, Dr. Tenma, what I just said isn't wrong, is it? And Tenma's like, no. He's like, right now, what kind of face do I have? And Tenma's like, you're crying. And I like that Grimmer's been calling him Dr. Tenma and Dr. Tenma doesn't correct him anymore. Oh my God. Oh, buddy. Oh, buddy. It's so freaking sad. It is. It's the saddest thing. And it's just so horrific how Johan was trying to corrupt him. And God, thank God for Grimmer. Thank God for Grimmer coming in there. So yeah, I'm still worried about Milos and about his impact on the orphanages. I'm worried about Johan getting to the other boys and corrupting them as well. I hope they don't. And it gives more stakes to the story as well, because now we're not only just trying to find Johan because he has been a threat. We need to find Johan because he is being a threat right now. He is contaminating and corrupting these children. We need to stop him from doing so. It definitely adds more stakes to the mission of finding Johan than just, oh, he's here. It's like, no, we need to find him. So, I don't know. This episode was a lot of sad. A lot of info on Grimmer. A lot of getting confirmation on Grimmer. But, y'all, just pour that sugar on me. Give me that Tenma Grimmer fan fiction. If it don't got spoilers in it, I'll take it right now. Just send it my way in the Discord. Arms for the poor! That's where I'm at. I need it. My soul needs it. My soul needs Grimmer and Tenma Levens. Help me out here. Help a girl out. But, oh my God. So, yeah, I mean, lots of things discussed, but I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Holy cow. In any case, again, where do we go to from here? I guess we'll find out in episode 50, won't we? So, in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Monster. Bye.